This party is incredible. Cheers, everyone.
Absolutely stunning view, isn't it?
The music is just perfect tonight.
We're tilting!
They were powerful, affluent, untouchable. Two families who had survived poverty side by side, built empires side by side, and trusted each other with everything they owned, even their children. But one accident on the ocean shattered the beautiful memories they once shared. It turned love into unanswered grief, and planted a secret the world would uncover 12 years later. This is not simply a love story. It is a story about blood that refused to remain buried. Alison and Beatrice grew up side by side. Back when their parents shared cramped apartments, cheap meals, and impossible dreams. Back when wealth was only something they whispered about late at night, praying tomorrow would show them mercy. The families struggled together, failed together, rose together. So it was only natural that their children became inseparable. They played in the same streets, shared secrets, shared laughter. As they grew older, friendship quietly transformed into something deeper. By the time success finally arrived, by the time money, influence, and recognition followed, their bond already felt written into destiny. Alison was just a baby when his mother and father left the village for the city in search of greener pastures. His father met an agent who deceived him, promising a 2-bedroom flat available for rent. On the other side, Beatrice's mother was pregnant with her. She and her husband, along with their young son, also left the village for the city, unaware they had paid for the very same apartment Alison's father had paid for. Both families were frustrated and deeply disappointed. The agent refused to refund either payment despite their desperate pleas. Neither family could afford to leave. They had no miracle to perform, no extra money to secure another apartment after paying a full year's rent. So they reached an agreement: they would share the same house and living space, except for the bedrooms. You can imagine how difficult it is for two different couples to live under one roof. They agreed that after 1 year, one family would find another place. But 1 year passed. Then 2. Then many more. Because they were driven by the same goal: to succeed in life. Until the year their struggles finally paid off. Beatrice's parents relocated to another state, yet they kept close contact with Alison's parents, who had moved into a better home of their own. Years later, Alison left the country to study. He earned his first degree, then his master's. Beatrice followed her own academic path, brilliant, focused, already accepted into a postgraduate program abroad. Before she returned overseas, both families agreed on one thing: they would marry first. Not because it was forced. Not because it was business. But because it felt right. To make the wedding unforgettable, Alison and Beatrice planned a 7-day countdown. 7 days of memories before forever. Day 1 was a private cruise. Laughter. Music. Soft wind brushing against their skin. Day 2 was fine dining, luxury, candlelight, stolen glances across the table. Day 3 was what they called a sikatayan. Day 4, family visits. Day 5, a celebration with friends. Day 6, bridal shower and bachelor's eve. Day 7, the wedding, followed by a honeymoon across Dubai, the UK, and Switzerland. Everything unfolded as planned until the 3rd day, when they went for their sikatayan. Not for celebration. Just for beauty. Alison brought a close friend along. His friend brought his girlfriend. The ocean appeared calm, almost inviting. But they did not realize that somewhere beneath the yacht, something had failed. Metal groaned. Water surged in. Panic spread faster than sound. People screamed. The yacht tilted. All Alison could remember were hands dragging him upward. Air ripping into his lungs. Darkness. When Alison woke up, he was alive. His friend survived. The girlfriend survived. But Beatrice. Beatrice was nowhere to be found. Search teams were deployed immediately. Divers. Helicopters. Specialists from outside the country. Money meant nothing now, everything was spent. Beatrice, on the other hand, woke up on a distant shore of the ocean. Alone, with no memory of what had happened. No one beside her. No houses to return to. Just trees, the sounds of wild animals, and rocks where she laid her head to rest. She hoped. She waited. And eventually, she accepted the world placed before her. Back in town. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Nobody. No trace. Beatrice's parents refused to accept it. Alison refused to let go. The news carried her name. The ocean carried her silence. Living in the forest, Beatrice realized she was pregnant. She carried the pregnancy alone. Bore the burden alone. Gave birth alone. And she came to believe she lived only for the child. She called her son a baby. After 1 year, hope thinned. After 2, hope hurt. After 4 years, hope became unbearable. Alison aged during those years. Not in appearance, but in his eyes. Eventually, life forced a decision. Alison married another woman. Not because he forgot Beatrice, but because grief cannot be a permanent home. His wife loved him sincerely. They moved abroad. They built a quiet, respectable life. 2 children followed. A son. Then a daughter. From the outside, Alison's life appeared complete. But somewhere inside him, the ocean still whispered. Before this story goes further, take a moment. If you believe love can survive even death, press like on this story. And if you want more stories that uncover hidden truth and second chances, subscribe now, because what happens next will change everything. Beatrice raised her son in the forest. She taught him which fruits were safe. Which sounds meant danger. How to climb. How to hide. She spoke to him in broken English, words she barely remembered but refused to lose. She sang to him at night. Held him when storms raged. Smiled even when her strength faded. For 6 years, Beatrice lived for one purpose. Her son. But the forest does not forgive weakness. Illness came quietly. Strength slipped away slowly. One night, Beatrice held her son close. She kissed his hair. Whispered words he would never fully understand. And she never woke again. He was 6 years old. Death took her away, leaving her son alone in the forest. At first, he did not understand. He thought it was a game. Days passed. She never rose. It dawned on him that he had to survive. Alone. He grew stronger. Faced life by himself at that tender age. When he turned 12. One day, tourists entered the forest. He heard unfamiliar noises. He moved toward the sound to see what it was about. The forest had never echoed like that in all his life. He climbed a towering tree. Sat there, watching. He watched in shock. He watched in fear. He studied them closely while gripping a branch. Trying to understand what was happening. Until the branch betrayed him. It split as he reached for another. But it was too late. He fell from the tree and screamed before losing consciousness. By the time he woke in the hospital, the world already knew his face. Phones buzzed. Doctors whispered. Nurses stared a second too long. He looked nothing like the other children in the ward. His skin darker from the sun. His hair untamed. His eyes, sharp, alert, older than his years. But it was the structure of his face that unsettled people. The cheekbones. The jawline. The unmistakable resemblance. Someone pulled up an old photograph. Another followed. And then the name was spoken aloud for the first time. Alison. Alison watched on television and across social media. He saw and heard about a boy who looked exactly like him. At first, he dismissed it as rumor. Until his wife began to question him in ways he never expected. He decided to see for himself. And prove the public wrong. Alison arrived at the hospital late that night. He had been warned something was unusual. He expected an accident. A lawsuit. Perhaps a distant relative seeking help. He did not expect to enter a room and see a child who looked like a reflection from 12 years ago. Alison stopped breathing. The boy was asleep. A bandage wrapped around his chest. Machines blinking softly beside him. For a long moment, Alison could not move. Standing there felt like standing inside the past. The boy opened his eyes slowly. He did not scream. He did not panic. He had learned early that panic wastes energy. Instead, he studied the man before him. "Are you real?" he asked quietly. Alison swallowed. "Yes," he replied. "I'm real." "Why is everyone staring at me?" the boy asked. Alison tried desperately not to believe what he was seeing. So many thoughts raced through his mind. He managed only a faint smile before looking away. The doctors wasted no time. They asked questions. Requested records. Ordered tests. Alison agreed to everything without hesitation. When his wife arrived, she saw the expression on his face and understood immediately. Something was wrong. She looked at the boy. Then at Alison. Then back at the boy. Her expression shifted. Not to confusion, but to certainty. The DNA results returned 48 hours later. They were conclusive. There was no room for doubt. He was Alison's biological son. The room erupted. His wife stood so abruptly her chair crashed behind her. "What is this?" she demanded. Alison could not speak. "You told me you never cheated," she said, her voice trembling. "You swore to me." "I didn't," Alison answered hoarsely. "I don't understand this either." But understanding did not matter. Not yet. Pain spoke louder than reason. She cried. She accused. She demanded answers Alison did not have. Their children watched from the doorway, confused and frightened. And the boy? He watched in silence. He did not understand the words. But he understood anger. He had seen it in storms. In animals fighting for food. In the way illness had taken his mother. This felt the same. Later that night, when the room grew quiet, Alison sat beside the boy's bed. "Who is your mother?" he asked gently. The boy hesitated. "She lived with me," he said. "In the forest." Alison frowned. "In the forest, where?" He pointed vaguely. "Near water. Big water." Alison's heart skipped. The next day, the boy shared his story. Not all at once. Not with emotion. Just facts. How his mother taught him to fish. How she spoke English sometimes and another language when she was tired. How she used to stare at the ocean for hours. How did she die? Alison asked, barely holding himself together. The boy looked down. "She got tired," he said. "She told me to be brave. Then she slept." Something inside Alison fractured. Authorities were contacted. Search teams organized. They followed the boy deep into the forest. Beyond places no maps recorded. Until he stopped. "She's here," he said. They found bones. Wrapped in cloth that had once been expensive. Jewelry half buried in soil. Time had taken almost everything. But not the truth. DNA confirmed it. The remains belonged to Beatrice. The woman the ocean never returned. The woman Alison had buried in his heart, but never in the ground. When Alison's wife heard the results, she broke. Not in anger, but in grief. She wept for Beatrice. For Beatrice's son. For the accusation she had held like a weapon. "I'm sorry," she whispered. To Alison. To the boy. To a ghost she had never known. Beatrice was finally brought home. A funeral was held 12 years too late. People came from everywhere. They spoke of tragedy. Of fate. Of miracles and cruelty intertwined. But Beatrice's son stood quietly beside the grave. He did not cry. He had already done that alone in the forest. Alison asked his son if it would be all right for him to call him Alison Jr. The boy smiled and said yes, he loved the name. Afterward, Alison knelt before him. "You don't have to stay," he said. "But if you want a home, you have one." His son studied him for a long moment. Then nodded. The forest had raised him. But blood had found him. And love. Love had waited 12 long years to finally tell the truth. If this story touched you, don't leave quietly, subscribe to this channel. Comment the word "waited" if you believe true love never truly dies. And share this story with someone who still believes in destiny.